This month's episode of the Audio Production Town Hall. You can find this month's episode and all of our previous episodes on our Full Sail One webpage. I'm Rikk Palmer. I'm the Course Director for Project and Portfolio 5 for Audio Production. And I'm here today with Tony Mardini, Full Sail grad, Latin Grammy winning engineer, and your audio arts team manager for the Career Development Department. What's up, Tony?
Hey, how's it going, Rick? Good to be here.
So, a lot of things to talk about today, but you were a former student, so let's take it all the way back to the beginning.
Sure.
What was it that originally brought you to Full Sail?
Originally, I wanted to be involved in Gloria Estefan Productions.
Now, did you have anything related to that going on at the time, or this was just kind of a goal of yours?
Yeah, so it was definitely a goal. Had nothing going on, just DJ'd some, and back home, and.
And any previous audio experience at all, starting from scratch?
No, other than just messing with turntables at home, tape decks, and a couple reel-to-reels, but.
And you came here for, was it recording arts, the option back then?
Yeah, it was recording engineering.
Recording engineering.
Yeah.
Awesome. And so how do you feel like that set you up to then do your ultimate goal?
So ultimate goal, I don't think I've achieved the ultimate goal yet, but.
What's the ultimate goal then?
I don't know yet. I'm still trying to figure that out. But I think, so coming here was, the reason I came to Full Sail was because all the credits, album credits that I would see on the back of these Gloria records or any Miami records coming out at those times, some way, somehow I figured out that Full Sail had trained some of these individuals on the back of these album covers, right? So that's kind of how I started just navigating myself towards getting involved in a Full Sail degree.
Awesome.
Yeah.
So you basically saw it on the albums that this was the place to go, and you came here, you started studying, and what sort of options did the school have for you at the time were there any departments like a career development at that time back then?
So back then it was called placement department, probably a 2-person or 3-person team. Tammy Elliott was the person pretty much running all of career dev at that time. Talking about 1998.
Wow. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. And they offered like the services that are still offered today, just not online, right? You had access to their library of recording studios because Full Sail had a subscription to the recording handbook or the Mix magazine, so you're able to look in the back and see how those, what studios interest you, and then you share that with your career advisor, and you kind of build a plan on how to get there.
Awesome. So then how did you ultimately make that leap past graduation to go out and get into engineering?
Right, so my original intention was to come here so I could end up working for Gloria Estefan at her Miami studios, Crescent Moon Studios. So I kind of already had the blinders just coming in.
Singularly focused on that goal, and this is what I want to do.
This is what I want to do, and fortunately it worked out for me that way. So all my entire time here, back then the recording degree was 16 months long. You had 3 months at the beginning of something like SMPTV, Business of Living class, and I forget what the other one was, but it was basically to weed out those individuals who weren't serious about a career like this.
That didn't have that passion and that focus.
Well, that entire time, the 16 months I was here, I remember calling Crescent Moon Studios every single month. And I don't recommend anyone to do that to any facility. I certainly got on their nerves. I don't think that's the reason why it worked out for me. There are other things.
But you wanted to make it known that, hey, I exist and this is my goal to be there with you guys.
This is what I want to do with my life. So, Crescent Moon also has hired many Full Sail grads over the years. So a lot of them returned and did things like this. I would always attend, like I would be the kid back there, if I was allowed in and raising my hand and asking questions. how'd you do it and how can I do it and things like that.
So at that time, were you just trying to get into, see if they have any internship possibilities, or it was just any way that I can get into the studio, I would like to be there?
I wanted in on the internship. I knew they had an internship. I didn't know much about it because until you're close to graduation, they won't really disclose that much information because you're just not ready or you can't get out there. So, but I just wanted in on the internship for sure.
So you displayed that passion, and what other ways do you think that you kind of set yourself apart from any other candidates or people that might have been interested in that as well? Or what was it that made them say, yep, this is our guy?
I think I was relentlessly passionate and very decided that this was what I wanted to do. That's all I saw, day and night. So when my roommates were out partying, and I couldn't go just because I didn't have the money, right, to go hang out with them, I was just making sure I was doing all my classwork, learning everything about the gear. I would research what kind of gear Crescent Moon had, what kind of music they were working, and just listen to everything and just be completely immersed in what that environment would be like.
So they give you the opportunity, you go there. What sort of challenges did you run into right off the bat?
That's a good question. I feel that I had prepared myself mentally since the moment I stepped full to Full Sail, at Full Sail, to make this internship
So
happen.
there wasn't anything intimidating, like you look at the gear, you've already researched it all, so it's like, put me in front of this console, I can do it, or
that's the feeling, right?
Yep.
It's certainly the feeling. You put me in front of this console, I can do it. There is intimidation because what I was talking about at the time, interning at Crescent Moon, is top 10 A-list major label artists in and out of that facility. It wasn't a small studio down the street with, a Pro Tools setup. You're talking about legendary records being made. They had just wrapped up Frank Sinatra and Gloria duets with Phil Ramone or something.
Yeah.
We're talking a major scale here.
So did anybody brief you on any etiquette, or was this just sort of an innate thing within you that you know how to act in these situations? Or
Yeah, you definitely got briefed in etiquette. They definitely explained to you the do's and don'ts and the soft skills. Don't speak out of place and don't give an opinion. But I think I definitely brought that to the table. Like, I felt like I think I know when to speak, and I know what to talk about. Like, I really felt comfortable with that. If I saw an opening to speak to a producer, and you need some coffee or something like that.
Yeah.
So I wasn't trying to.
So you found ways to show your value to it without necessarily stepping on any toes, or.
Yeah, I took the internship incredibly serious. So my father always taught me. He said, if you want to be a garbage man, be the best garbage man there is. And I took that internship making a cup of coffee. Like, I really mastered that art.
Yeah.
And I took pride in people saying, wow, that's a really good cup of coffee. And honestly, I say that story and it's funny, but that's what ultimately got me one of my major opportunities in my career, is a cup of coffee.
So how did that come about? How did that springboard an opportunity for you?
The coffee?
Yeah, the coffee.
So fast forwarding, it's about 2000. I'm assisting a Mandy Moore session. Mandy Moore's cutting a record. I take that back. I was doing multiple sessions. I'm assisting a session for a backup singer that was on tour with Mariah. She just got signed to LaFace, and they didn't drink coffee, so we make these little Cuban coffees. Hence Gloria Stefan's Cuban. Making these coffees, and I bring them the first day of my session, and the artist, her name is Joy. She was like, I don't really drink coffee. I said, just try this one. If you don't like it, we'll get you anything you want, no problem. Just kind of the way I open up my sessions. So she tried it. She loved the coffee. oh, wow, that's amazing. Never had that before. I said, oh, I'm glad you like it, right? And so we spent 2 weeks. That kind of set a good tone, good pace for me as an assistant. And then, every time she would come in the booth, we'd exchange dialogue. And it was just like, what do you need? You got everything you need. Microphone feels good.
Yep.
Anything she wanted. Later on, fast forward, that was 2000. Fast forward in 2008, I've already got an established name for myself. Have album credits as a producer and engineer. I got a couple of Grammy nominations. I got some BMI awards under my belt.
All of this still out of the same studio?
Yes. The Estefans played a huge role in a lot of my success.
So then you were definitely able to start and grow and stay and really kind of build a name for yourself there.
Absolutely. That's most, if you look at my credits, the bulk of it is in Crescent Moon Studios. So 2008, my contract is up with Universal Publishing. The Estefans, I'm about to wrap up my contract with them, and I decide I want to go to Los Angeles to work on American Billboard charting albums, right? So I had their full support. They were like, great, you ever need us, come back. So I trek off to LA, and when I'm in LA, LA's not easy, first off. I don't recommend anyone to do it how I did, just get up and go. Try to set yourself up for success.
So
but
you just kind of was like, this is where I'm gonna go, I'm gonna head out there. Don't really have too much going on right now, but I know that's...
Put the blinders on again.
Yep.
Yeah,
I'm just focus that kept you going.
I'm just gonna make this happen. So I'm out in LA, and it's a rude awakening. Regardless of the success that I've had, regardless of the experience, regardless of my expertise and knowledge of how to work, not only the equipment, just people in the music industry, LA just has a way of breaking you in. So back then we had MySpace. So on MySpace I send Joy. We remained in touch all these years, just hi. And I said, and I knew she was out in Los Angeles, so I reached out, said, hey, just checking in. I'm in town, and just
Make you coffee.
Yeah. Well, when I reached out to her, she was like, hey, Tony, I remember the coffee.
Yeah.
Great.
It's amazing the little things that stick in people's
The little
heads.
things, brother. Yeah. And I really wasn't trying to ask her for anything. That's one of the things you learn in this industry. When you need something, you kind of got to offer, not ask. And it's funny how that...
For me, it's, this is what I can bring to you. Or
funny how that works, man. So she said, hey, why don't you meet us at church this weekend? There's a huge event happening. Make sure you get there early. We have reserved seats. I'm like, wow, what kind of a church is, what's going on here? Seats. Yeah, so it just so happens that T.D. Jakes was speaking this day.
Okay.
And he's pretty popular in that realm, right? So we get there, and Joy had married super producer Rodney Darkchild Jerkins. So they have their reserved seating up front, and I'm joining them. I'm sitting next to Joy, Rodney, and a few of other family members of theirs. And so I see this show go down, and right after, I think it was 3 hours, T.D. Jakes stops talking after 3 hours. And by the way, T.D. Jakes is I would say is a rock star in his own form. That was an incredible performance.
Well, if you got reserved seating, yeah.
Woo! I mean, it was a great message, right? It was thousands of people there. Guy talked for 3 hours, and I felt like he was speaking to me for 15 minutes, and that's how fast it went.
That's awesome.
So after that, I meet Rodney officially. Hey, Rodney, Tony, and he's like, oh, so I hear you know Pro Tools. I'm like, yeah. You in town? You looking for work? I said, yeah. Well, whatever you need, I'm available.
Yep.
He said, all right, come by the studio. This was a Saturday. Come by the studio tomorrow. And my first session with Rodney was Natasha Bedingfield.
Okay.
And I think that was during the day. And then, what's the girl from the Pussycat Dolls? I forget her name. She married the Interscope guy. Ron Fair? I can't think of her name right now.
To brush up on my Pussycat Dolls.
Pussycat Dolls,
Yeah.
right. So two major artists right there from just a brief meeting with Rodney because of, his wife remembered this coffee I did 8 years ago when I was an assistant engineer.
So opportunity presented itself, and you seized it.
Seized it. I became one of Rodney's in-house engineers. And after that, like you're talking about Rodney Jerkins, like his track listing, the people he works with is like it's on a whole nother level, a whole nother ball game, right? You're talking about Drake, Mary J, Black Eyed Peas, Akon, Britney Spears, Justin Timberlake. I mean, the list goes on and
Grows
on.
and grows.
Yeah, and this is like now it's my everyday. And I say that only to contrast. Before I said my time in LA, when I got there, 9 months of struggling until I reached out to Joy, was bone dry, nothing.
Right.
I was selling everything, selling off my studio. I mean, just
Anything you can to just
survive.
to stay there, to get it going.
And then overnight, I'm like working nonstop for the next 3 years. Like it's incredible.
So it's having that passion, not letting it go. And then when the opportunity is finally there, you just take it and do the best. You run with it.
You
right?
run with it, man. You make that happen. So there is something to say about being prepared when opportunity presents itself.
And not having that fear. A lot of things that I notice in speaking with a lot of the people that we have that come through is a lot of times it's when there's something that's unknown or they haven't necessarily, maybe I'm not familiar with this studio or this piece of gear. It's having it in you to be able to say, all right, I might not know it, but I can still give it a shot.
Yeah, it's usually those monumental moments in your life are starting off with fear, and then something happens, and then it's like an amazing breakthrough of your life, yeah, that's usually how it's happened to me.
Yeah, no, that's kind of feel the same way. So, LA, what brings you back here to Florida?
So, things are going really well in LA, making good money, incredible projects. One of the projects that I was happy to be a part of was recording and mixing Janet Jackson. For me, this is one of the, growing up with them. Yeah. So that was like, I was like, wow, so that was pretty incredible. Anyways,
yourself occasionally.
Yeah. So I'm working on all these projects, and now suddenly I have 3 daughters back in Miami, Florida, and I just have no time, right? Mm-hmm. So I always say this, and anytime I'm giving an example of this story is, in this industry, I find like you'll either have a lot of time and no money, or you'll have a lot of money and no time.
Yep.
And it's the secret is to find that balance, right? And that's always the trickiest part, because us folk in this industry, we would do anything for our career, pretty much. I mean, it takes that kind of a personality, that individual. I think it takes the individual more strength to figure out that balance and know when to.
And how it personally fits for them, right? Because it's going to be different for everybody.
Yeah, you said it best, man.
Yeah.
It's definitely whatever your situation is. Obviously some things are going to be more important to you than they are to me, vice versa. In that particular time, 3 years out in LA, I was just not seeing my family enough, and my daughters were just growing up, hitting their teenage years.
Yeah.
And I mean, it got to the point where I just wanted to teach my kid how to ride a bicycle. It wasn't even about money. Mm-hmm. I had that.
Yeah, and that's the stuff that you can't buy.
Yeah, got my kid, just wanted to teach her how to ride a bike. So that's what pulls me out of LA. And I head back to Miami. And when I'm in Miami, obviously back into Miami's predominantly the Latin genre of music. There is some hip hop pockets, but predominantly it's Latin pop. And then, I'm back in Miami, and I just remember, this is why I left, right? The budgets are just not LA budgets.
Yeah, not the same.
There is an astronomical difference of the budgets. So I'm in Miami, 2012, and I'm there for about, I want to say 9 or 10 months, and it was just rough,
Yeah.
you know, and I got growing kids and got to pay the bills, and the budgets aren't there for these albums that were coming out. So I get a call from Tammy Elliott over at Career Dev.
Yep.
If I want to join career development and share, you know, what I've learned throughout my experience and give back to the Full Sail students. And
So coming back to essentially where it all started.
coming back to essentially where it all started. You know, what's funny, even when I was a student, I always felt I would circle back here some way, somehow. I didn't know how or when, what, and it just kind of worked out that way. And
Well, that's awesome. So you're here now. You're in career development, and you're helping. What exactly is career development for our students that don't necessarily know yet?
so, you know, career development is a team of passionate people who are just really eager to help Full Sail students and graduates get their first steps in the industry. It's not an easy industry to be successful in, and I do want to emphasize on the people at career development that just do this day in and day out. It's not easy for us to do this in this industry.
Mm-hmm.
Now, to have someone else trying to, you know, coach you through it is I think is even harder, right?
Right.
Because we're trying to be empathetic and understand you, but you're the one going through it.
Yep.
And I'm, you know, I just think they're really special people there. So what career development does is provide tons of services since I was a Full Sail graduate, right? Things like, to me, the most valuable right now, as an alumni, looking back, I think this is worth everything that you have to invest in Full Sail, is these career networking events.
Oh, absolutely, yeah.
Because folks, you're talking about a department that puts about 50, let's call it 50 employers, I'm here in the live venue on campus, under one roof. And we promise you, we guarantee that you will have a chance to speak to each one about career opportunities. And we don't invite employers that are not willing to give, or that do not have jobs available, paid
Yeah.
jobs, right? Not internships. Like that's the understanding. You're coming over here, you have paid jobs to offer Full Sail graduates on all degree titles. So you're talking film, computer, audio, whatever it is.
Yeah.
I think that is huge, because try to get one job interview on your own today.
Yeah.
And we'll go back to my example. 10 years of experience in Miami, Grammy nominations, BMI awards, production credits, engineering credits. And I'm out in LA struggling, selling
Yep.
everything I got because I can't get one person to speak to me. Now, there's a whole lot to be said about that, just the pockets in LA, but under one roof, you have all these employers. I think that was brilliantly, orchestrated by the top people over at Career Development.
Yeah, nothing beats being face to face with a person and getting to talk and
Woo.
what do you do? What can I do for you?
Yeah.
What should the students do before maybe contacting career development? Like, what sort of ducks do they need to have in a row before heading into this process?
So I think I'm going to emphasize that whatever degree you're in, we're specifically talking about audio because that's the team I work with. Do your research on non-traditional opportunities out there. We'll take a degree like audio production.
Right.
It's an online degree. Do your research on other opportunities that are out there that your training will help you get a job in. So let's face it, most people want to mix records.
Right.
Most people want to master. records. And we're talking at a, again, Billboard top 10, any genre. That's kind of, oh, I want to do that. You know, I want to work on whatever, you know, Beyonce's next record or Pink or whatever your flavor is.
Of course, who wouldn't? Yeah.
You have that credit under my belt because that increases your stock value. So, but there are other opportunities, right? As I also do work at Golf Channel, and I do audio work, post audio. I do A1, and I do A2.
So for those who might not know what A1 and A2 is when you say that.
Okay, so A1 is pretty much the person in sitting behind the desk in a controlled studio environment that most television studios have, and they'll be, you know, raising and lowering the faders as the director or producer are calling cues to whatever they need. That's the simplest way to say it.
Mm-hmm.
It's not an easy situation to navigate, but that's kind of what it is, right? The A2, a simple way to say it, the A2 is the individual on stage, right? We have a person out here that's helping us with our microphones, making sure that, you know, the cameras are getting the levels they need, and the A1 is getting everything he needs, right? They're in charge of, it's basically an assistant engineer, like in a studio, except for a live studio audience or environment.
It's kind of like when you see like people on football fields and they've got the parabolic microphones.
Yeah,
you know,
well, I mean, an A2, I would say that's more of a, not an A2. Like there's a guy behind him holding the cable, or I guess in film they call them the grips, right?
Yep.
So that's a good way to describe A2. Post audio, in a television environment, you know, you're pretty much running a DAW, Pro Tools in my case, and you're either, like last night, we had a golf game coming over, and we need to translate that in Japanese. So we're getting a world feed live, playing it to the studio talent who are translating it in Japanese, and then we're pushing it out to Japan, right? So that's what I'm doing. I'm in there just raising the fader levels of the talent, the VO talent, and making sure that I'm only bringing up what we call nat sounds, natural sounds, right? Because there's English on 1 and 2. Now I'm getting technical, sorry. So I say all that to say, be mindful that there's other career paths out there that pay. Broadcast pays incredibly well, in my opinion. Like I'm surprised sometimes that you know what they pay me. I'm like, wow, really for this?
All right.
Okay. Now I've been doing this for nearly 20 years. I think I've earned. There's a meme I saw the other day. You pay me, you know, X amount of dollars for a job I'm charging you 3 hours for, but I can do it in 10. I've done, you know, I got 20 years doing this, and that's how I know how to do it in 10 minutes. That's what you're paying me for.
Yeah.
You know, it's not the hourly thing. So know that career path. Another example for an audio production career path would be, you and I were talking earlier, games, right?
Oh,
football games, children's recitals. There's an individual with a boom mic recording, you know, little Johnny's 5th grade recital, and his parents are going to pay big to have that restored, to have that copy, you know, because their dream is that he would grow up to be a Frank Sinatra one day.
Yep.
And all this, like there's like a lot of money in that, right? Package that up and make a video, and
you find it on YouTube later.
Yeah.
How did that get there?
I mean, you know, so I think what I would emphasize is do your research on alternate career paths. Try not to get stuck in, well, I just want to be this, because your degree prepares you for so many things. You have to know how to use all of it.
Have an open mind to the field and all the different possibilities that are out there.
Different possibilities, absolutely. And know your location, all right? You can't, chances are that if you live in Homestead, Florida, right, you may not land an A&R job with Sony, or that's bad because actually Sony's in Miami. But let's say Cape
close,
Coral,
yeah.
Cape Coral, Florida, right? You're gonna have to move. If you can't move, be honest with yourself. Try to find other alternative career paths, or figure out ways where you can relocate into a city that's going to offer you those opportunities. That doesn't take away the challenge of a major city, though, right? I'm in LA with all these credentials. I still struggled.
Yep.
It doesn't happen all the time, but you have to prepare yourself. So I think just be open-minded to other career paths, and when a career advisor is coaching you and trying to get you to see these other paths, I think just pay good attention. Courtroom audio.
Yep.
Everyone's seen Hustle and Flow, right? Anthony Anderson, that's his gig, right? It's his daytime gig. He's setting up his recording tools and he's recording a case, people's depositions, whatever, testimony. There's money in that.
There's a lot of restoration in that now, too.
Oh, and restoration, absolutely.
Because now everybody's going in and they're denoising.
CSI, right?
What did they say?
There's so many alternate career paths other than what we see, in mainstream media. All that. Oh, children's books. Don't even get. I got friends who went into that career after doing a successful career in pop, and now are just like doing. Let's say they're not wealthy, but.
So you're talking about like the podcast version of the books? They were recording those, or just?
So they were doing music for the cartoon series.
Oh yeah.
Even folks that are doing the editing for the audio books of children.
Yeah. What's the company that does that? Is that Audible? I think.
You have
there's
Audible.
so many, but yeah.
Yeah, there's an Audible Listen Up audiobooks, I think is another one. You also have ad work, right? A Toyota commercial, or if you team up with an ad agency, they're going to need some folks to do that audio. So anything that has recorded material, someone has to do it. It seems.
Might as well be you.
Yeah, it might as well be you. Make that money.
Yeah. So, being open to all the different types of possibilities that are out there. When should students consider or start to think about contacting career development? Is there a certain time period, or like if I just started in to month one here, is this something that I need to maybe wait a little bit on, or is there an ideal optimal time for that?
I think anytime, coming in month one, what you're coming in for, I think, is more important. If you're coming in asking stuff that I should be researching, then I think you're gonna get more traction than if you come in on month one and say, okay, I want to start getting experience right now. There's a few more things to learn in your degree before we get to that point that the employers that come to Full Sail are expecting. So unless you have a background already, then I think it's just choosing what conversation you're gonna have with career development. Towards the end of your degree at Full Sail, about 3 months in, either we'll send out an email or some kind of communication where you have an advisor assigned to you that'll work with you for the remaining 3 months to get those first steps into the industry. Now you've had enough training. If you pass if you got some kind of an internship or some kind of
So you're saying about 3 months out from whenever they graduate, they should have a pretty good idea of what conversations need to take place with your department.
Yeah, I mean, and they can certainly come before then. It's just like what you're asking for when you come before those 3 months. Like in month one, if you have no audio experience, and you're like, okay, I'm ready for give me some opportunity. It's kind of tough to get you that when you have a grad who's been here 2 years,
right,
who's ready for the opportunities that are coming into Full Sail. that the employers expect, right? Because we do have, our students are first, and then we have a relationship with the employers, and the employers have needs. They hire when they're ready to hire, and they know what they're looking for. And so we want to make sure that we're giving the employers a qualified candidate that meets their needs, so they keep coming back to us over the years.
So do you have any, success stories, or just like when you mention employers, what are some of the opportunities that you've seen some people sort of take advantage of in the past?
Sure. So when I started at Full Sail, I started off as an advisor before I became a team lead. There was a gentleman, Rafael Mesquite, who was very, you could tell that this kid had drive. He was ready to rock. Well, I'm going to do what it takes, and he had a desire to mix records. And I shared with him, just keep an open mind. The industry's changed so much. Mixing records is great. Just keep an open mind. And I think he trusted me to he knew my background. He knew where I came from. So he was like, okay, whatever you say, Tony. We end up helping him find an internship at Conway Studios. And it just so happened that the studio manager there, Stacy Barnett, used to manage me when I was in LA.
Yeah.
So I had a good relationship with Stacy. I mean, she's still gonna vet her people, but it's easy for me to say, hey, just check this guy out. I've known him now for over 2 years, and I vouch for him. I think he's...
Again, the importance of networking.
Yes, importance of networking. So he takes this unpaid internship. He calls me about 2 months in. He was like, this is horrible, man. They just got me running, making tea and coffee, and who cares, if Dr. Luke is in the studio or Max Martin. Yeah. It's just, I'm ready, of course he's ready to engineer, ready to mix. And I just gave him a pep talk, a little, tough love pep talk. I'm like, this is what you wanted. This is what you put 2 years in. Just give it a shot. Like, this takes time. They need to, warm up to you. So he sticks it out. He gets hired on as a runner, which is basically an intern who's just paid. You're doing the same running duties. Yep. So you're just being paid for it at not a lot, probably a little bit over minimum. So he does that for a year, and he's networking well with some of the producers, some of the engineers. They're liking, that he's keeping their coffee pot hot, or that trash is always clean. And every time I look back, there's Rafael just ready to go. Well, what do you need? Yeah. So he was that kind of individual. I think he still is that kind of an individual. So he gets hired on as an assistant engineer. He gets on a project with The Weeknd. He's a pop R&B singer. Yep. And they go through this album, that last album right before Starboy. And they liked him. They liked him so much that the Weeknd was going to go on tour. They offered him a job to be, I want to say, the production coordinator for The Weeknd's next tour. And he calls me up. He's like, dude, I just got this job offer. I'm like, you see? Yep. What should I do? And you take that.
You say yes.
You say yes. You take that. I know it's not, mixing records, but now you're going to learn how a show goes down for a well-established recording artist. This is going to open a whole nother lane of experience for you. You can always record albums on the side at your house. Now you know how to do that. Yep. And now you're going to have credibility on this side from a well-respected source like The Weeknd.
Yep, it's another step in the right direction.
Yeah. So he is now the production coordinator for that camp. I want to say he's gone off to do his own thing now in the sense of offering freelance services, but still remains in contact. And he's doing it right. He's in LA, I want to say now 5 years. So that was a pretty good story I was excited about. And then our very own Alexandra Perryman, right? Mm-hmm. She used to be a student assigned to me. I was always happy to see how she took well to advice and just did everything. And one day we're helping her out with a church gig, an AV gig, and the next thing she's calling me and saying, I got a job with NASA as their engineer.
Yeah.
And her credit is like, I love this, President of the United States. It's in her credit. I'm like, wow,
Yeah.
that beats any Grammy in my
It's
book.
like, all right, that's, yep.
Yeah, I think it was Barack. It was, so.
Yep. So, success stories. Do you have any, like, not necessarily horror stories, but any cautionary tales or don't do's, or you watch out for this in this whole process?
Yeah, so when you're starting out, just learn to be a fly on the wall, observe, be careful not to give an opinion ahead of time. I've certainly seen, individuals just do some really just awful.
Wait till you're asked.
And be careful what you say, right?
Yeah.
But yeah, wait till you ask. I remember was mixing a record with a couple producers, and this was for a big Latin pop artist. And our intern at the time was in the back of the room, and I was mixing and soloing guitars, EQing, something like that. Had the producer right next to me. It's about 3 a.m. or 1 a.m., something like that. And I remember the intern just like got up and started talking in the middle of the mix. So we stopped tape, and he's like, yeah, I think that, you should have played that guitar part like this. You got it like that. And who cares what you think should be
immediately
played?
became the producer.
Yeah, and the producer didn't like that at all. So we stopped tape, called the session off right there. We're wrapping up for the night. Next day, we let the studio manager know what happened, and we never saw that kid again.
Yep.
It's just not cool, right?
If you got something that's on your mind, it's great to keep it there, so that when somebody actually maybe does ask your opinion, you have something educated to say.
Educated, yeah.
So it's been thought out, but it's learning how to maybe build up that wall in front of your mouth sometimes.
Yeah. Be respectful. Know the soft skills, how to deal with people. I think there's a lot of value there that can really get a lot of people the job, as opposed to the technical stuff. I feel like any facility, any environment is going to teach you how they do things, as long as you have the basic fundamentals that you get from a full cell education. But the people skills, it's so tough. Something that I always recommend, the book that I always recommend, is How to Win Friends and Influence People by Dale Carnegie. It's a leadership. He's a leadership trainer, probably one of the best out there. And this book just really goes deep into difficult situations that you'll run into life. It's written years ago, but
Right, and probably applies to all fields.
applies to everything, man. And one of the things I remember, I'm still very close to the Estefans. We're always keep in touch. I was actually on the phone with them this morning because they want to bring some opportunities to Full Sail for the students. So one of the things that Emilio always told me was, this industry, the most difficult part is knowing how to read individuals' minds and being able to communicate what you're trying to communicate, and also understand what they're trying to say, because it's not, we live in this industry is very creative. It's very, you get descriptions like, I want some music that'll make me feel fluffy and blue, but yet have some sparks coming in. That's the kind of descriptors that you get. So you have to know how to read that stuff. And I'm not saying you got to, how to decipher that, but read body language and just everything else, energy. I think that's the difficult part, and Mr. Stefan always said that, so I think this book really addresses some of those things,
Right. And I think people you get a little bit more leeway with the technical side, because it's always constantly changing and updating, and even if you're in it, you still gotta keep up on that. But the people side, that seems to be one of the things that if you can get that mastered, that seems to be where everything's at here. So I think we're going to open it up for questions, if there's any questions at all that we have on there. If not, I know we're going to put his email here onto the list off to the side that you should be able to see. But other than that, I think we actually have to start wrapping up for the day here. So,
yeah, I just want to end on a career dev note. You know, use the resources at Career Development. We have a lot of good people, skilled people there to help you through your career and your first steps. Be open to alternative career paths that aren't so mainstream as, you know, top 10 Billboard charting albums and stuff like that. There's so much other work for so many people. So definitely be open to that. And location, I can't tell you the importance of being in a right environment. And if you're not in one of those environments that you see yourself, you know, having a successful career in, because for whatever reason you can't relocate at the moment, figure out what works for me right now. There's other alternatives, right? AV is like hands down, it's like a Old Faithful, I like to call it. So just understand all the resources available to you. Try not to get frustrated if your dream job doesn't happen right now. It takes time, right? And let your career unfold as it may. So that's, I think I'd like to say that just in closing.
awesome. Well, thanks for joining us, Tony. And
Thanks for
thanks
having
everybody for joining us for the Audio Production Town Hall. As always, you can find our episodes here on Full Sail 1. You can find this episode and all of our previous episodes. And thanks for coming up. We're glad that you came.
Give it a second, put on credits,
Oh
and
yeah.
you guys are good.
Awesome.
Turn on, keep it on black, keep it on black. Don't do anything, just keep it on black.
It goes pretty fast.